So you weren't touched by God like those that can just immediately find out exactly what notes are in a song, and you have to learn music the hard way and use your brain and logic and systems and theory to figure out what in the world's going on to be maybe half as good as those people with perfect pitch. Well, this video is going to deliver you the copium that you were hoping for, which is, I think in some ways you may be better off without having perfect pitch. Now, this is not stopping me from trying to grain into my children exactly where A is, because again, I think if you've got the choice, yeah, choose perfect pitch. But most of us don't have that. And so I think it's a good idea to think about what elements of perfect pitch may be more limiting and which ones do relative pitch actually give you a better chance at learning and working on music. So I got 4 different areas where that is true. Let's just define some terms real quick, talk about a couple disclaimers, then we'll get into the reasons. The first is, let's talk about where we're talking about. Perfect pitch versus relative pitch. Perfect pitch is I hit a note and you go, oh, I know what that note is. It's an A, it's a B flat, it's a C, whatever it is. You can even get to the point where people can know every single note in a very complicated chord immediately just by hearing that. Relative pitch, on the other hand, is if you know a note, say, for example, you know this is C, and then you hear this note, you can go, yada, and you can think, oh, in the saints, and then you go, oh, it's an E, because I know what a major third sounds like. That is relative pitch. Now, relative pitch is actually relatively easy to learn in the grand scheme of things, and almost anyone can learn. Perfect pitch is something a very, very small percentage of people have, and it's unclear, but I think most people think that it's a level of both learning and genetics at an early age that gets you your perfect pitch. But again, I'm not going to go into that. That's just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. The final thing that I'm going to just say is, of course, perfect pitch rocks. This video is not to kind of whack on people who have perfect pitch. Perfect pitch is incredible, but not all of us are gifted that way. And so I want to just give you some reasons why relative pitch may be superior in certain cases. And also, these are generalizations. Wow. That's a terrible way of saying it. Broad generalizations, and mostly as encouragement to stay the course, keep working on your relative pitch. Don't worry, it will help a ton. The first category where I think relative pitch actually may be superior than perfect pitch is understanding music theory. If you really look at music theory, it tends to be organized around keys and around relative do. What does that mean? It means having a key center and building everything around that key center. And that could be in C major, it could be in A major, it could be in D flat major. You have options of where it's starting. And because of that, relative pitch in some ways is more geared towards that music theory level. And what I will say is, from anecdotal evidence, I do find that there are probably more musicians that have to learn the relative pitch model that tend to know more about music theory than those that are just naturally gifted with perfect pitch. Because ultimately, you don't even have to really understand music theory to play at a high level if you just know the notes just by hearing them. Again, there's counterexamples galore. Don't kill me if you already know perfect pitch and you know all the theory. That's not what we're talking about. I just think relative pitch does lend itself more to understanding that music theory, especially since it helps you with your relative pitch to know what notes you're going to be playing. You have to know what a major third is to use that element to learn what that note is from the other one. The second, changing keys on the spot is a bit easier if you have relative pitch versus perfect pitch. And let me give you kind of an example of why. Let's say that we're playing Don't Stop Believing. That's an E major. And everything about that song, E major all the way. Let's say instead we're going to do it in F sharp major. If I know it and I use relative pitch to understand it, so I'm going 1, 5, 6, 4, all that business, That all I can then just transfer over to F sharp major. And if I know my 12 keys well and I understand my relative pitch, it's instantaneous and it will sound right to my ears almost immediately. Not immediately, because everybody has that general feeling of where the notes are. And certain songs, especially like Don't Stop Believing, they don't really sound right if they're in the wrong place. But it will be still easier for me with my relative pitch compared to someone with perfect pitch, because it's going to never leave them. They will always be able to hear that dissonance from where they want it to be versus where it actually is. The third reason is dealing with out-of-tune instruments are not going to give you a migraine if you have relative pitch. If everyone is in tune, but it's out of tune of what 440A is, that's kind of the general standard, that can feel a certain way to someone with perfect pitch. It can almost feel like everything is wrong or off-putting, even though it's not. I think this is why sometimes people with perfect pitch actually like certain non-440 standards, because even 440 can feel wrong to that person, and so they may want to take a certain standard like 432 and use that instead. Relative pitch, I don't care. It's gonna, if the instruments themselves are in tune with each other, I'm not going to be able to pick up that minor difference, and so we can just play and jam out. So I show up to your house, you tuned your guitar, I tune up a bass to that, and we're off to the races. Who gives a rip? You know, we have to go down a quarter step because it's a little too high for a voice. It's not going to bother me at all. As long as all the instruments are in tune with each other, it's going to sound right as rain to me. Here's the fourth one. This may be the most controversial, the most annoying to people with perfect pitch, but I think it bears saying, and that is, it can be easier to communicate with others using relative pitch versus perfect pitch. And this is for a very simple reason. If you happen to be someone who's 7 feet tall, that's a very rare human to be 7 feet tall, your relating to other people about tallness is going to be off on an island because you're 7 feet tall. Same with any extreme. Having perfect pitch is an extreme. Your ability to relate to another person about music is going to be more limited than someone who comes from a relative pitch background. That's just common sense. Can that be overcome? 100%. Could you even use your ability to find notes right away to make it easier to communicate with someone else? Probably. But at the end of the day, having relative pitch is going to make it a easier sort of parallel peer-to-peer, wow, I can't speak, communicating method. What, at the end of the day, does this all mean? I want to encourage you just to sharpen your ear skills. And I've got a little carrot to throw your way, which is, if you do this for long enough, I've been doing it for 25 plus years, you'll find that you'll get to the point where you'll have what is called pitch recall, which is not perfect pitch. If you just play me a note and I haven't heard music in a while, I'm not going to know what note it is. But if I've been practicing for a few minutes in the morning and you play me a note, I'm probably going to know what letter it is before I even play something else. And I'm not even thinking relatively of it. Why is that? Because I get so used to hearing something that I know what it's supposed to sound like. Guitarists do this with their low E string. String players do it with the A in the orchestra. Horn players do it with B flat. You can get to the point where you just know where these notes are no matter what. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was encouraging. Perfect pitch people, I still love you. Relative pitch people, keep the struggle up. We got this. Comment below if you have perfect pitch and if you disagree with me, if you got relative pitch, something I missed. And until next time, you have a great day.